Happy Monday, fight fans. This is the DAZN Boxing Show. I go by the name of Barak.
And I'm Barak, the boxing bully.
Thanks for joining us. A lot to talk about. The takeover took over Las Vegas this past weekend in the Resorts World Casino. That's right, Teofimo Lopez, big win, 7th round stoppage. And I would say, Barak, he is back. I mean, look, first things first. People were questioning how was he going to bounce back from the loss that in some cases and interviews he still puts out there that he feels like he won that fight. A lot of people felt like psychologically he'd be affected by it. And we know what he went through physically in the Kambosos fight. After 3 rounds of shaking the rust off and getting into a rhythm, we saw vintage Teofimo Lopez, but Barak, even more so, he showed his boxing ability. Teofimo's been knocking people out. He showed that he can also box, and he showed that in the Lomachenko fight. I was happy to see that. Were you impressed being in Las Vegas in the building?
I was definitely impressed. And one reason is because Campa has a lot of experience at 140 pounds. They came in the game that high. He's fought a little bit higher a couple of times at 147. So he fought a legitimate 140 pounder, a bigger guy with more experience than him. So that means Teo actually proved himself in this division. A lot of people were giving Danny Garcia some slack, like, oh, well, you moved up, but you didn't really fight 154 pounder, but he did fight a bigger guy, but in this case, this is a 140 pounder. We've seen old Teo who's explosive, who's very, very athletic, who throws combinations, and that power translated at this division. Maybe he didn't get him out of there early, but Pedro is a pretty tough guy. He's a bigger guy. It made sense. I think the issue that I see with Teofimo talking about his last fight, which was a loss, and he feels like he won against Kambosos. The only thing that I can say is that sometimes when people give their opinion about a fight, they're not haters. Sometimes they're not against you. It's just their opinion. And they're not, it's not like the whole world is against you, but sometimes fighters feel like if you give your opinion and it's different from theirs, then you're hating and you're against them. And that's not always the case.
New generation, Barak. That not only fighters, that's just new young generation.
Maybe so, but it's just added stress that you're putting on yourself instead of just moving on, because no matter what, it's still going to be a loss on his record. There's a lot of times I've seen fighters who I thought got robbed and now they have this L. And I'm like, damn, eventually you got to move on. You got to say, you know what? It's a loss on my record. I'm going to move on. He can either later avenge it or just continue to be great.
Barak, you mentioned that he showed how explosive he still is, and the fact that his power carried up to 140 pounds. And that was impressive, but I was more impressed by the boxing ability that was shown, meaning he got into a rhythm where he took control of the fight and it was fairly easy. He did what he wanted to do in there, defensively, offensively, picking his shots, spinning, head movement. I think that gives a fighter confidence, moving forward, meaning, hey, I can still do all of these things that I've always done. Look, I did it at a different weight class. I feel comfortable doing it. And I got the guy out of there, You always want to get that stoppage win to make a statement, but between fifth, sixth, and 7th round, he looked, and the fight was stopped in the 7th, he looked phenomenal.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was just already picturing other fights at 140 pounds. Watching that Teofimo, obviously Regis Prograis crossed my mind. Obviously guys like Cepeda, Josh Taylor, the big guys in the division, I saw Teofimo in big fights with them. And he was the smaller guy, and normally he's the bigger guy. He's a very big lightweight, but he's obviously one of the best 140 pounders in the world already, even with one fight. You can't question that.
I agree with you. I had mentioned that night because I was there ringside that he was looking like Roy Jones towards the 5th and 6th round. And Teofimo
was a good comparison.
Yeah, because he was jumping in and out of range with hard shots. And that's something that Roy did very well with that left hand. And I think that's what Teo was doing, but he was kind of honest in the post-fight interview, talking about it took him some time for his legs to really get into the fight. And he's saying that maybe the weight cut still is bothering him, and that's the tricky part. Like, when are we going to get past that point where you feel confident enough to get in there and say, I'm not going to have no issues. And that's another thing he touched on as well, that it was a little bit fearful going into this. After that fight that you just had with Kambosos, you put your life on the line. You felt you was close to death. You felt like you was about to quit.
Wait, did he mention that in the post-fight press conference?
Actually, he did. He said,
I don't think I heard that in a post-fight interview.
Yeah, I was right there. He said it was scary. It was scary thinking about, is that going to happen again? He had to tell himself that God has got him. He didn't bring him this far just to bring him this far. So he had to conquer those demons just to get into this fight. And that's the thing. That's what fighters have to do.
Now, Barak, just a quick to mention, moving on another fight that you were actually at in Arizona this past weekend that didn't take place. You know, we don't have details about it, but we just want to mention Teofimo was supposed to fight Mickey Bay this past Friday. And the fight didn't happen, Barak. I mean, share with us whatever you can tell us about that night.
Well, I was backstage with Lorenzo Simpson, whose fight also didn't happen for whatever reason. But I was hearing that it was about some kind of money issue. Now, and when I text that to you, you said, which was wise, you said, but wait a minute, fighters get paid after the fight. And that made a lot of sense, what you said. And I think obviously there was some kind of agreement to give Mickey Bay or whoever it was money beforehand, and maybe even sometimes, well, obviously fighters have to be shown proof of funds, right? Proof of funds by the promoter, you know, whoever's sponsoring this fight. And maybe that wasn't shown. I don't know. I know it was a money issue. All I know is that I was sitting in the stands. I knew that the fight was canceled, and no one else in that crowd. There was a couple of thousand people there, maybe even 3,000. No one else knew that the fight was canceled. I didn't hear any announcement. You know, after a while, I went in the back. Devin Haney was back there supporting Lorenzo Simpson. And I don't know what time period they told the crowd, you know. So that was a pretty tricky situation. But what's strange was that Lorenzo Simpson's opponent was complaining about the gloves. Oh, you can't wear Grant gloves. A whole bunch of complaints. His mother was, I guess, part of his team, his trainer, whatever. And it's funny because after a while, there was a rapper there. I have no idea who he was, but even Devin Haney was like, listen, if the problem is money, I got the money in my pocket. I'll pay for the fight right now. Devin Haney was in the back room, yes, in the dressing room. And he was offering to pay for the fight himself if money is the issue.
For Lorenzo's fight.
Yes, for Lorenzo's fight. And then after a while, that wasn't even enough. And his opponent just didn't want to fight.
That's interesting, and shout out to Devin Haney for actually making that offer. And listen, folks, most of you watching this might know, you know, these fighters, this is how they make a living. This is how they pay their bills and feed their children. So it's tough to get prepared for a fight, and come fight night, this happens. And some of you might not know, but Teofimo and Mickey Bay were supposed to fight in Dubai some time ago, and because of the death of their leader, you know, everything was canceled and they didn't get a chance to fight.
Actually, the fight was supposed to happen in Africa first, and then it got switched to Dubai, and then it got switched to Arizona, Prescott Valley. Now, this is 2 months camp. 2 months, rather. 2 different camps, rather. So you're talking about months and months of training to have no fight. Money spent. There you go.
And these guys can't go home with a check. So that's very unfortunate. We don't know any more details about that. The more details we get, we'll disclose. All right, Barak, in other news, one of the biggest trolls in boxing history, Tyson Fury, is at it again with the retirement. Look, we don't know what to believe with Tyson Fury. He's retiring, he's not. I mean, there's so many things that he said on social media that didn't come to fruition. And I remember years ago, Barak, I mean, even when he was inactive, he had held titles for a very long time after beating Klitschko, and one that he always held on to is being the lineal champion. So we respect Tyson Fury for making that decision, but this time there's some added pressure. Looks like some of the belts are already moving. Ring Magazine gonna be up for grabs for AJ Usyk, which is happening this weekend. And I think the WBC, if I'm not mistaken, is giving him a deadline. Look, are you serious or are you playing games? Because guess what? We're gonna pull this strap from you, this WC strap, if you're confirming retirement, because we need to either vacate it, you know, place a fight for 2 fighters to be able to win the WBC heavyweight title. But they're taking his titles away, Barak.
Yes, and by the way, you can catch that Usyk Joshua rematch right here on DAZN in America.
Yes.
Now, listen, the WBC is saying, listen, are you for real or are you serious?
Yeah, that's
basically what they're saying. And this is the difference between any other retirement. He's actually giving up a belt. Now, in my opinion, I'm like, if you're giving up the Ring Magazine belt, is that you saying that you're giving up the lineal championship? So you can't come back and say, you know what, I'm still lineal champion after
you can't
hold on
to that.
You can't hold on to that. Lennox Lewis, you know, when he retired, he gave up that lineal spot, you know, and they kind of gave it to Klitschko, even though he never beat Lennox Lewis, you know, and that's the thing. Eventually, we have to give it to somebody else who's active. Now, sometimes it seems,
Barak, maybe, I mean, since he's claiming to be the lineal champion, even though
he is
technically, technically he's not, because he, Klitschko didn't beat Lennox Lewis.
No, but then that means it dissipates. That means it just disappears. So we have to place it somewhere and think about it. At that time, Klitschko's were running boxing. They're not going to fight each other. Somebody had to have it. And the younger brother, Vladimir, had 3 titles.
Right, but so they inherited it, but they didn't earn it. But I'm not taking away anything from Tyson Fury. You know,
well, you can't. Lennox got to come back and fight.
No.
You got to give it somewhere.
No. Lennox had to actually lose it in the ring to somebody in order for it to be real, technically. But nevertheless, look, I'm one of the people that always called Tyson Fury the lineal champion. So I'm giving him that. I mean, that's not a physical title that you can strip from him.
Yeah, I think after a couple of years, you should lose it, though. That's what I think. I think after a couple of years, that's it. You can't come back saying that you are. It was smart for marketing, and whatever it is, people accepted it. We accepted it. It is what it is, you know. But I think that if he's willing to give up this belt, maybe this retirement is serious, or maybe not. Because in reality, if he keeps the WBC, and if he fights the winner, Usyk Joshua, and if he wins, he can still be
undisputed,
no
doubt about that. I have a funny feeling, Barak, with all that being said, that Tyson Fury might not be retired. Maybe this is all a PR stunt. Maybe Tyson Fury is going to tell the WBC days before they strip him, hey, no, you know what? I decided to come back. I want to defend this WBC strap. I want to become undisputed. I'm waiting for Joshua Usyk to take place. Who knows? But
I think, you know what I think? I think that it's a serious thing that he had 3 tough fights with Deontay Wilder. Maybe 2 of them were really, really tough for him, where he felt Deontay Wilder's power. And not only did, just because he won, that doesn't mean that he didn't go through a lot in those fights as well.
Right. But his last fight, which is, what you remember the most on a fight, is Dillian White, which a fight, it wasn't difficult for him at all. And he won by big knockout stoppage. So, look, we don't know. The truth remains to be seen, or at least it's not 100% confirmed yet. All right, so we look, and remember, he mentioned that he was going to, fight Francis Ngannou. That was a fight that he actually and publicly said that it was going to happen. They were both in the ring. So I don't know. Maybe he's maybe he's retiring from boxing. Maybe he's going in to fight Ngannou in a cage. I doubt that. Or maybe he's going to WWE and wrestle. Who knows? But I'm glad that you mentioned and reminding people again, that's right. AJ Usyk's going to be live here in America on DAZN. You guys don't want to miss it. Look, that's our show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace and love. Stay safe. We're out of here.